Imagine it's day one after every single human on Earth has simply disappeared. The buildings are standing. The streets are perfectly paved. The physical world we built is completely intact. For those first few hours, everything looks remarkably normal. The traffic lights still cycle from green to red, but the usual roar of traffic and pedestrian chatter is gone, replaced by a low, eerie mechanical hum. That hum is the sound of a highly complex system running on autopilot. Look at the dense arrays of screens and electrical signage in a place like Shibuya Crossing. Keeping hubs like this brightly lit and warm requires a massive, continuous supply of electrical power. Down on the barren pavement, the earliest signs of abandonment emerge. Squirrels, stray cats, and confused dogs begin to wander freely through the empty city squares. Eventually, the lights flicker and die. The neon glow fades, and those pristine concrete structures are suddenly left entirely exposed to the elements and the encroaching forest. We tend to think of our cities as permanent monuments. In reality, they are highly dynamic, fragile systems. They demand constant, active human intervention to stay standing. The quiet unraveling starts fast. Generators in hospitals and critical data centers kick on automatically, their diesel motors keeping a few pockets of the city alive, but they burn through their backup fuel supplies in less than 48 hours. Out at the major hydroelectric and nuclear power plants, operations continue blindly, but these facilities are heavily reliant on manual oversight. Within a week, a routine breaker will trip, an error a human supervisor would typically spot and reset at a control panel like this. With no one at the wheel, automated fail-safes trigger. Huge, sprawling power plants shut themselves down entirely. One by one, the planet's major electrical grids go dark. The loss of electricity sets off a chain reaction. Natural gas compressors experience sharp pressure drops and fail. Soon, distribution stations stop pumping fuel. Heat leaves the buildings. In colder regions, pipes freeze solid and burst, flooding homes. In warmer climates, ventilation stops and enclosed spaces begin to rot. The breakdown of civilization begins with the failure of the invisible systems that regulate temperature, light, and power. The first decade without us is violent. Heavily managed forests, now completely unprotected by human firefighters, ignite. Enormous megafires rip across the landscape, eventually sweeping right into abandoned residential zones and consuming everything combustible. What the fire doesn't take, the rain will. Waterproofing seals fray, window gaskets fail. Once a roof goes unmaintained for 10 or 20 years, water starts pouring into the drywall, inviting mold, moss, and aggressive rot. The water eventually reaches the structural core of our cities. Modern buildings rely heavily on reinforced concrete. When moisture penetrates the porous concrete and hits the steel rebar inside, the steel begins to rust. As the rebar oxidizes, it physically expands. This creates immense internal pressure, violently fracturing and breaking the concrete apart from the inside out in a process called spalling. Without any maintenance to patch those cracks, structural integrity plummets. Within 50 to 100 years, cheap office towers and massive glass and steel skyscrapers corrode until they warp, slump over, and collapse onto the streets below. Infrastructure everywhere gives way. The swaying tension ropes of suspension bridges rust through and snap, sending cables plunging into the sea. Massive concrete dams eventually overtop and burst under the strain of unmanaged water, entirely flooding valleys that we farmed for centuries. Modern engineering is essentially an ongoing race against entropy. The moment we stop performing routine maintenance, the natural world takes the lead. As the concrete falls apart, the biosphere aggressively rebounds. We have already seen previews of this inside the Korean demilitarized zone. By removing human activity from a heavily guarded border area, the landscape quickly transformed into an ecological sanctuary. Formerly endangered wildlife reclaims its old territory. Domestic dogs abandon their collars, form packs, and revert to wild hunting behaviors, surviving as our most prominent biological legacy. The longevity of our physical legacy depends on material simplicity. While our most engineered technologies fail within decades, our simplest stone constructions can remain standing for thousands of years. Structures built strictly from stacked stone, masonry, and heavy earth are incredibly resilient. Take the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey. These massive T-shaped stone pillars have sat quietly intact for over 11,000 years. Given enough time, nature will simply bury these ancient survivors. Think of the great Mayan temples in Tikal. After 1,000 years of abandonment, only the limestone tips of the pyramids poked out above the thick, aggressive jungle canopy. By the 10,000-year mark, a thick layer of soil, forest, and sand will cover whatever is left. To any alien visitor flying overhead, the surface of the Earth would look like a pristine, untouched wilderness. With the surface wiped clean, the only traces of us left will be buried deep underground. Protected from extreme weather, our subway tunnels, seed vaults, and ancient cave paintings will survive far longer than our skyscrapers. But eventually, even these subterranean environments succumb to geology. Weathering, erosion, and underground biological activity slowly break down residual concrete into sand and convert iron and steel into iron oxide soil. The ultimate physical erasure takes millions of years. Earth's tectonic plates slowly skate over the mantle, subducting old landmasses. As the crust plunges downward, it drags our deepest bunkers and nuclear repositories with it, melting them down in the extreme heat of the planet's interior. The Earth runs its own hyper-efficient recycling program. Given enough time in deep geological history, absolutely no physical structure of humanity will survive intact. Our passing will be recorded as a permanent biological footprint. In the same way we find the skeletons of dinosaurs today, our existence will be etched into the planet's fossil record. If another intelligence arises on this planet millions of years from now, they won't find our phones or our monuments. They will invent their own paleontology, digging up strange chemical markers in the soil and the fossilized bone fragments of our teeth and fingers. Earth will scrub away our cities, collapse our towers, and melt down our technology. But beneath the surface, embedded in the very stone of the planet, evidence that we were here will remain quietly preserved for billions of years.